Hello, my name is Bev Scott, and I'm here with my colleague and co-author Kim Barnes. We'd like to talk with you a little bit about our new book. It is the second edition of Consulting on the Inside. 11 years ago, I published the first edition, and it's been a bestseller and very useful, and we're delighted to have a second edition. You need to.
Okay, this is the Bev and Kim show. I think we were learning that many people now find themselves in the role of internal consultant. People that used to simply be specialists, subject matter experts, suddenly are being asked to take on the role of consultant. So first thing we ought to say is, what does that mean? And when we say consultant, we mean somebody that has some kind of skill set or expertise that's needed by other people in the organization. They also need to have influence in the organization to get other people to accept their recommendations, to get other people to invite them to use their skills, because they don't have any formal authority. So they cannot make people do or coerce people into doing what it is that they recommend, but it is their job to get people to accept their recommendations and to use their skills. So that is both the job description and also the dilemma of the internal consultant. A person who is working with someone who wants to change something, wants to improve something, or where the organization wants to see something changed or improved, but with no formal authority to make it happen.
There are many challenges for the internal consultant. Indeed, I think the role of the internal is much more challenging than being an external consultant who comes in at the request of the organization with some expertise. As an internal, as Kim described, one has expertise and has to use influence. And indeed, to accomplish that influence, has to stand at the edge of the organization. That means to be congruent with the culture and the norms of the organization, but at the same time to maintain some objectivity and neutrality and thus be marginal. That can be kind of challenging because it's easy to become one with the organization and to do what we call collude with some of the dysfunctions of the organization. The other challenge for an internal is to be sure to maintain impeccable integrity, to not succumb to the pressure of senior managers asking the internal consultant to do something that isn't right, that violates confidentiality, or perhaps is not in the best interest of the group involved. That coping with the politics and the seniority and the hierarchy is often a challenge for internals because they're located in the middle of an organization. They also have to juggle multiple roles, sometimes be managers, sometimes be consultants, sometimes be other experts in the organization, and have a challenge to choose how much neutrality and how much advocacy they endorse.
There are a lot of skills that are required to be effective as an internal consultant. And in the book, we cover a number of them. We look at the skills involved in communicating with others, especially in influencing others, to accept recommendations or to support initiatives. We also look at some of the skills involved in both negotiating and problem solving, both of which you are called upon to do as an internal consultant. Negotiating with your clients, for example, to make an agreement that both of you can live with and that will be likely to be successful. Solving problems that may be very complex, very systemic. Knowing how to approach them. You can't approach them all in the same way. So how do you know what kind of problem you have? And we do focus on that as well as on negotiating. Then there is a third skills chapter where we look at the skills of facilitating and coaching. These are two roles that you're often called upon to play as an internal consultant, the coach, the facilitator. But they're very complex skill sets. So we have at least tried to provide tools for internal consultants to use as they think about the variety of roles that they must juggle.
The one of the issues that any individual who's in a consulting role has to manage has to do with emphasizing their own strengths, but being able to manage those areas of weakness that can sometimes show up when our buttons get pushed. And one of the things we talk about is how we can manage those issues that tempt us in our interaction with our clients. For example, if we seek to find approval rather than perhaps do what is the most effective, or we're anxious to belong and be accepted, and so we agree to something that really violates integrity. Another area of self-management includes not emphasizing my way, but developing our way. And perhaps even the importance of staying with our competence and not getting overconfident. Those are just a few of the examples of some of the discussion of self-management that we include in the book.
So many of the things that we include in the book, we try at least to touch on in any workshop or talk. We really work on making sure that people have a chance to look at their own practice, as well as discuss some of what other people have learned from their practice. Whether you are an organizational consultant, organization development consultant, an HR person, someone from IT, somebody from strategy, human factors, if you need to be a consultant, you need to have a way of approaching your client. And we have a few pieces of advice.
And the very most important piece of advice is to know the business and know the organization that you're working in, so that all of your interventions as a consultant focus on real business issues, not just something that's nice to learn. It's also important to identify performance gaps and do that even before managers might even be aware of those gaps. Another piece of advice is to be aware that organizations are systems and that what you do in one part of the organization has an impact in other parts of the organization. It's also because, as Kim mentioned, you play many different roles as a consultant. It's really important to build skills in your role as a coach, as a teacher, as an advisor, and as a strategist. So that gives you a brief taste of some of the things we cover in the book and some of the alternatives that we can cover in a presentation. And we're very excited to be able to talk about the role of the internal consultant and developing expertise and mastery.